My fiancé took my dog when we broke up, so I took her to court, won everything. Watched her get escorted out while crying in front of everyone. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and 2 years ago, I thought I'd found the love of my life. Her name was Emily, the kind of woman who walked into a room and somehow made everyone else fade into the background. I met her at a charity event for rescued animals, and I'd brought my dog Max along with me. He was my world, a rescued golden retriever with the gentlest eyes you could imagine. When Emily knelt down to pet him, Max wagged his tail like he'd known her forever. That moment, I swear, felt like the start of something special. We started talking about rescue work, about second chances, about how people and animals both crave safety more than anything else. She laughed easily, touched my arm when she spoke, and before the night was over, she said, "I think Max approves of me." That's a good sign, right? I remember smiling, completely unaware of how much weight that joke would carry later. Our first few months together felt like living inside a movie montage. We'd cook dinner together while Max sat at our feet. We'd go hiking every weekend. And she'd always post pictures of the three of us with captions like "my little family." It made me feel like I was finally building something lasting, something real. But every now and then, I noticed tiny flickers of something else. When Max ran straight to me after work, Emily's smile would tighten just slightly. If I spent too long playing fetch with him, she'd joke, "Don't forget, you have a human girlfriend too." I'd laugh it off because I thought love was supposed to be patient, that little insecurities could be smoothed over with time. Looking back, I realized that was the first time I ignored my gut. The first time I mistook control for care. After 6 months of dating, Emily suggested we move in together. "It just makes sense," she said one night, as we sat on my couch with Max curled up between us. "We already spend every day together. Why waste rent on 2 places?" I hesitated for a moment, but the idea of waking up beside her every morning felt right. So I said yes. Within a month, she'd moved into my small apartment, bringing boxes of her clothes, plants, and an energy that seemed to take up every inch of space. At first, it was great. We'd cook breakfast together while Max nudged at our legs for scraps, and she'd laugh, saying, "He's such a spoiled little prince." She started calling him our child, and I loved how naturally she seemed to embrace him. But slowly, something changed. She began rearranging the apartment, replacing my old furniture with what she called aesthetic upgrades. Max's bed, which used to sit by the window where he loved to sunbathe, was moved to the corner. "He sheds too much near the curtains," she said. When I put it back, she rolled her eyes, muttering, "You care more about that dog's comfort than mine." I brushed it off. Maybe she was just adjusting, I thought. But small remarks started piling up. She'd sigh when Max jumped on the couch or made a mess after coming back from a walk. Once, when he ran straight to me after she'd called him, she said half-jokingly, "Guess I'll always be second place." Her words lingered in the air longer than they should have. I wanted to reassure her. But something about the way she said it, the sharpness behind the smile, unsettled me. Still, I convinced myself love was about compromise. I told myself everything would even out once she felt secure. But I didn't realize that in trying to keep her happy, I was slowly losing my own peace, and Max was, too. The first real argument happened over something trivial, Max tracking mud into the living room after a walk. Emily stood in the doorway, arms crossed, staring at the paw prints on her new white rug. "Do you even care about keeping this place clean?" she snapped. I laughed awkwardly, thinking she was exaggerating, but she didn't smile. "You let him walk all over everything, literally and figuratively," she said. Before locking herself in the bedroom, I stood there, confused, looking at Max. He tilted his head like he could sense the tension. I wiped the floor clean, knocked on the door, and said softly, "Hey, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful." She opened the door after a pause, eyes teary. "You just never take my feelings seriously," she whispered. That night, I apologized again, even though I wasn't sure what I'd done wrong. Over the next few weeks, things got more complicated. Emily started making comments that dug a little deeper. "You know, most women would expect their fiancés to focus more on the relationship than a dog," she'd say, half smiling but watching me closely for my reaction. When I worked late, She accused me of avoiding her. When I spent time with Max, she said I was emotionally unavailable. I kept trying to find balance, scheduling date nights, taking her out, even skipping Max's evening walks to keep her happy, but every compromise just seemed to fuel her resentment more. One night, after I came home from work exhausted, she muttered, "I wonder if you'd even notice if I left. As long as Max's bowl is full, you're fine." I tried to laugh it off, but the silence that followed was suffocating. That night, lying in bed with Max at my feet, and Emily turned away from me, I felt something shift, something fragile inside our relationship, beginning to crack, and I had no idea how deep those cracks were about to go. It started with a strange gut feeling, the kind that gnaws at you, quietly before it finally screams. Emily had been distant for weeks. Her phone was always face down, and she started working late more often. One night while she showered, her phone buzzed on the counter. A message preview flashed across the screen. "I miss you too. Wish we could talk like before." My stomach dropped. When she came out, toweled around her hair, I asked, "Who's Ryan?" She froze just long enough for me to know everything. "He's just a friend from college," she said too quickly. I pressed again, voice trembling. "Then why is he saying he misses you?" Her expression shifted. Anger, guilt, then defiance. "You don't trust me because you're too busy obsessing over that dog," she snapped. "You think you're perfect, but you're emotionally cold, distant. I couldn't even process it." "Emily, I'm not the one lying," I said quietly. She scoffed, grabbed her phone, and muttered, "I can't do this." Within minutes, she was packing a bag. I tried to stop her, not out of pride, but heartbreak. "Can we at least talk?" I pleaded. "You don't get to play victim now," she said, slamming the door behind her. That night was the loneliest of my life. I sat on the couch, Max's head resting on my lap, my mind spinning. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. I just replayed everything, was wondering where I went wrong. The next day I went to work hoping space would help. When I came home, the apartment felt eerily quiet. I called out for Max, but there was no sound of paws on the floor. His bed was empty. His leash was gone. On the kitchen counter sat a single note. "He's better off with me. Don't try to find us." I felt my chest cave in. It wasn't just a breakup anymore. It was theft of the one being who had never betrayed me, and that's when something inside me snapped. I don't think I've ever known panic like that. I tore through every room of the apartment, calling Max's name like he'd just be hiding behind the couch or sleeping under the bed. But deep down, I already knew Emily had taken him. My hands shook as I called her number, but every call went straight to voicemail. "Emily, please," I said in one message, my voice cracking. "You can hate me all you want, but don't do this to Max. He's my dog. He's my family." The next 2 days, I didn't sleep. I printed flyers, drove to every shelter in a 30-mile radius, and asked neighbors if they'd seen anything. Most just looked at me with pity. One shelter volunteer said softly, "People do this more often than you'd think, using pets as leverage after a breakup." That word leverage hit me hard. I wasn't just dealing with heartbreak. I was in a power struggle I never asked for. On the third day, Emily finally texted back, "He's doing great. Don't contact me again." I stared at the screen, rage and helplessness mixing until my chest physically hurt. I typed back, "You can't just take him," and she replied, "I can if he wants to stay with me." I remember sitting on the floor, Max's empty leash in my hands, feeling completely hollow. The apartment felt lifeless without his paws padding across the floor, without the jingling of his collar. I'd always thought losing a person hurt the most, but losing the one soul that loved you unconditionally? That was a different kind of grief. Friends told me to move on. My mom said, "It's just a dog." But it wasn't just a dog. He was my best friend. My reason to come home, and the longer I sat there in that silence, the more something dark began to grow inside me, the need to fight back, no matter what it took. A week later, I was sitting in my car outside the apartment, staring at my phone, debating whether to call her again. That's when my friend Daniel showed up. He'd been the one person checking on me every day. "Man, you look like hell," he said, leaning against my car door. I just muttered, "She took everything, Dan. Even Max." He frowned. "Wait, wasn't Max adopted under your name?" The question hit me like cold water. I pulled up the adoption paperwork from my email, scrolling through old attachments until I found it. There it was, my name on the registration, my signature on the adoption certificate. A small spark of hope flickered for the first time in weeks. Daniel leaned closer. "Then she can't legally keep him, dude. That's theft." It sounded so simple when he said it, but my brain was fogged with anger and exhaustion. "Even if I go to the police," I said, "they'll just tell me it's a civil matter." "Then make it one," he replied. "Lawyer up." That night, I sent an email to a local attorney who specialized in pet custody cases. I didn't even know that was a thing. The next morning, I sat across from her in a small office lined with case files and framed newspaper clippings. Her name was Lisa, and she listened carefully as I told her everything. The breakup, the note, the stolen dog. When I finished, she opened a file and said calmly, "You have a strong case, especially since she forged this." She slid a document across the table, a recent online registration update for Max, with my signature copied at the bottom. My heart pounded. Emily had actually tried to re-register him under her name. I looked up, stunned. Lisa smiled faintly. "You said she took your dog," she said. "But what she really took was your peace. Let's get both back." For the first time since Emily left, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Purpose. I thought once I hired a lawyer, things would start getting better. I was wrong. The moment Emily found out I was taking legal action, she went on the offensive. It started with a message to one of our mutual friends. "He's obsessed. I'm scared of what he'll do next." Within a week, half the people we both knew had either unfollowed or blocked me. One even called to say, "Man, maybe just drop it. She's saying you're unstable." I couldn't believe it. The same woman who once posted photos of us calling me her safe place was now painting me as a threat. She started posting vague captions, "Some people show their true colors when you walk away." And people flooded her comments with sympathy. Every time I saw one, it felt like someone twisting a knife in my chest. Lisa, my lawyer, told me to stay calm. "She's trying to get a reaction out of you," she said. "Let her burn her credibility while we gather facts." But calm wasn't easy. Every night I'd lie awake replaying her words, wondering if she actually believed the lies she was spreading. Then one evening, I got an email, an official notice from her attorney, accusing me of harassment for repeated contact attempts. I stared at it, speechless. She had messaged me first, and yet she was twisting the story again. It felt like quicksand. The more I struggled to defend myself, the deeper I sank. Daniel tried to cheer me up. "You've got proof, man. Don't let her gaslight you into quitting." He was right. I had adoption papers, vet receipts, and text messages. But none of it mattered if the world believed her first. Still, when I opened my phone and saw another one of her posts, a picture of Max with the caption, "Finally where he belongs," something inside me hardened. I wasn't just fighting for a dog anymore. I was fighting to prove who she really was. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. A week before the hearing, a sheriff knocked on my door and handed me a temporary restraining order. Emily had claimed I was stalking her, that I'd been driving by her new apartment and harassing her online. None of it was true. Still, the document made it official. I couldn't contact her, come within 200 feet of her home, or even post anything that implied she was lying. It felt like my entire reality had been flipped upside down. The woman who once said she loved me was now legally branding me as a danger. My hands trembled as I called Lisa. "They granted her a restraining order," I said. "How can she get away with this?" Lisa sighed, steady but sympathetic. "Temporary orders don't require evidence," she explained. "They'll review it at the hearing. Just hold on." But I wasn't holding on. I was falling apart. My job performance tanked, my appetite vanished, and my apartment, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt like a tomb. Every sound, every silence reminded me of Max. I'd see his empty leash hanging by the door and just break. One night, I sat on the floor with a beer in my hand, staring at the adoption papers spread across the coffee table. My reflection in the glass window looked like a stranger. Hollow, angry, tired. She wins, I muttered to no one. She took everything. But then I noticed something. A photo tucked between the papers, a snapshot of Max with his paw on my knee, tongue out, eyes soft. The picture was worn, creased at the edges. But it hit me harder than anything else. That dog never gave up on me when I rescued him. How could I give up on him now? That night, rock bottom became my turning point. The next morning, I woke up with a different kind of exhaustion. Not the kind that makes you want to sleep, but the kind that makes you want to act. I gathered every piece of evidence I had. Vet bills, adoption contracts, registration papers, even text messages where Emily admitted, "He was yours first." Fine. I printed them all and put them in a binder. For the first time in months, I felt focused. Lisa looked through the binder and nodded approvingly. "This is airtight," she said. "You're not just telling a story, you're proving it." We spent hours preparing for the hearing, rehearsing testimony, and reviewing timelines. Every detail mattered. Lisa explained how Emily's forged signature would likely decide the case, but she warned me. She's manipulative. She'll try to play the victim. Stay calm, no matter what. Meanwhile, word about the case began spreading through our friend circle. A few people who'd once taken her side reached out quietly. One sent screenshots of Emily bragging in a private group chat saying, "I have his dog. He'll crawl back." Another sent a photo she'd posted of Max wearing a new collar, tagged "Finally Mine." Each piece of evidence fueled me further. I wasn't angry anymore. I was determined. This wasn't just about reclaiming my dog. It was about reclaiming my self-respect. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. I sat at my desk, staring at the folder with Max's adoption papers inside. I whispered, "Tomorrow, buddy. Tomorrow I'm bringing you home." For the first time since Emily left, I didn't feel powerless. I felt prepared, and I knew that once the truth came out, the world and Emily would finally see who the real liar was. The courthouse smelled like old wood and nerves. I sat beside Lisa at the petitioner's table, my hands clasped so tightly they hurt. Across the room, Emily walked in, polished, calm, wearing a beige suit like she was the picture of composure. She didn't even glance at me. Instead, she looked straight at the judge and then smiled faintly, as if this was just another performance she'd already rehearsed. When the hearing began, her attorney stood up first. "Your Honor," he said, "my client simply wishes to retain custody of the animal she's raised for over a year. The petitioner is vindictive, attempting to punish her after a breakup." Every word stung, but Lisa squeezed my arm lightly, a silent "stay calm." When it was our turn, she rose with quiet authority. "Your Honor, the respondent forged ownership documents and removed the petitioner's property without consent. We have the original adoption records, payment receipts, and even communication where she admits she took the dog." Lisa handed over the file. The judge flipped through each page, his expression hardening slightly. Then came Emily's testimony. She dabbed her eyes with a tissue and said Max was happier with me. "He was scared when I left, and I just wanted to protect him." Lisa didn't interrupt. She let the silence stretch before saying, "Miss Clark, could you please explain why the adoption certificate filed last month has your ex-fiancé's signature in handwriting that isn't his?" Emily froze. The courtroom felt completely still. Her lawyer looked blindsided. The judge turned to her and said, "Forgery is a serious offense, Ms. Clark." For the first time, Emily's mask cracked. Her voice faltered. I just wanted him to stay with me," the judge nodded slowly. "Then you should have asked, not stolen." In that moment, I realized I'd already won. Not just the case, the truth. The judge's gavel hit the desk like a gunshot. Custody of the animal, Max, is hereby returned to the petitioner. Additionally, the respondent will pay all associated legal fees and restitution for falsifying documents. The words rang in my ears, returned to the petitioner. It was over. I had won. But as the decision sank in, Emily's composure shattered. "You can't do this," she cried, standing abruptly. Her lawyer tried to calm her, but she kept shouting, "He doesn't deserve that dog. He abandoned me." Her voice cracked, echoing across the courtroom as people turned in their seats. The judge raised a hand. "Miss Clark, that's enough." But she didn't stop. Tears streaked down her face as she yelled, "He'll ruin that dog just like he ruined me." The bailiff approached her gently at first, then more firmly when she resisted. "Ma'am, you need to step outside." She shook her head, trembling. "No, he can't take him from me." Her cries filled the room as she was escorted out, her voice fading down the hallway. Everyone watched in silence. I didn't feel triumphant, just drained. There was no satisfaction in seeing her unravel like that, only a strange, hollow relief. Lisa placed a hand on my shoulder. "You did it," she whispered. I nodded, my throat tight. Later that afternoon, I drove to the shelter where Max had been held during the case. The moment I walked through the door, he barked once, loud and sharp, like he knew. When they opened the gate, he bounded toward me, tail wagging furiously, whining and pawing at my chest. I dropped to my knees, wrapping my arms around him, feeling his heart beat against mine. For months, I'd felt powerless. But holding Max again, I realized something simple and profound. I hadn't just won my dog back. I'd won myself back too. It's been 6 months since that day in court. And life finally feels quiet again. The kind of quiet that doesn't ache. Max is back home, snoring at the foot of my bed as I write this. His favorite toy resting beside him like nothing ever happened. Sometimes when the afternoon light hits his fur just right, I catch myself thinking about how close I came to losing him forever, and how much darker my life had become in the process. I've learned that love and control can look eerily similar when you're blinded by hope. Emily's affection had always come with strings, disguised as care, disguised as us. It took losing everything to understand that love should never feel like ownership. I don't hate her. I've let that go. But I'll never forget the moment I saw her crying in that courtroom, realizing she'd finally run out of ways to manipulate the truth. Justice didn't feel sweet or cruel. It just felt right after the case. I started volunteering again at the same rescue center where I first met Emily. It was strange at first, full circle, in the most unexpected way. One of the workers asked why I came back, and I said, "Because someone once saved me the same way I saved him." I wasn't just talking about Max. I was talking about the version of myself I thought I'd lost somewhere between love and fear. Now, every evening, Max and I walk the same trail we used to hike when everything still felt easy. The air feels cleaner. My chest feels lighter. People sometimes stop to pet him and say, "He's such a happy dog." And I smile every time because he is. Because we both are. In the end, Emily didn't just lose the case. She lost the one thing she couldn't fake, genuine loyalty. Max and I, we both got rescued, just in different ways.